Today I'm going to teach you about the three belief systems of China by telling you a story about my family. So, pretty much anybody who is embedded in the Chinese culture is going to have all three of these belief systems as part of who they are: Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. And that's because they're so powerful in the history of China. Now, sometimes these groups actually fought each other. So sometimes the supporters of Confucianism in history would fight against the supporters of Taoism in history of China. But what's interesting is that this fighting and this coexisting in China has led to a culture now where pretty much if you are Chinese and you have Chinese culture in you, you have a little bit of each of these things as well. And I'll tell you a story which demonstrates that. So we're going to start with a picture of me and my mom. This is middle school Mr. Yokla with my mother. And my mom and I have had a lot of conversations about these three belief systems. And I always insist to her that she is very Confucian. I say, "Oh, Mom, you're such a Confucianist." And she says, "No, no, no, I'm not Confucianist. I'm Taoist." And I said, "No, no, no, Mom, you're a Confucianist. You want to be a Taoist, but you're mostly Confucianist." So, what's interesting about Confucianism is it was based on the teachings of a man named Confucius, whose goal was to create a peaceful and stable society. He valued government service, and education is really huge, which is why so much of Chinese culture influences and says that education is so important. And it's really about following rules of conduct. So, for example, when I was growing up, this is middle school Mr. Yokla with my brother, there are rules in Confucianism about how siblings should get along. There's also rules about children and their parents, about rulers and their subjects, and all these different things. There's five main relationships, and one of them is the sibling relationship. And the idea is that I have a responsibility to my younger brother. I have to take care of him in order to have a peaceful and stable society. So those hundreds and hundreds of diapers that I changed for my little brother, that is me fulfilling my Confucian duty as an older brother. In return, my younger brother is supposed to respect me and listen to what I say. So when I say, "Oh, it's too dangerous to do that, don't do it," he's supposed to listen. And if he doesn't, then he's not following the Confucianist belief. So when I was in China, a lot of the students there were very, very respectful of me because I was their teacher. And the student relationship to the teacher is they have to be respectful. Now, the flip side of this is when you go back to my mom, there's this very important thing called filial piety, which means that the son or the daughter is supposed to give absolute respect to the parent. So whatever the parent tells me to do, I'm supposed to do. And my experience with my mom is she really expected me to do what I was supposed to do when she told me to do it. So, "Miko, do the dishes." I did the dishes. "Miko, you have to get A's in math and science and history and English and drawing and auto shop." I worked my hardest so that I could get those A's. That was very Confucian. Now, the idea behind this is that you have respect for your elders. So here you see 25-year-old Mr. Yokla and his wife visiting the graves of my relatives with my elders who are relatives as well. I must have visited 100 graves when I was in China because this is Confucianist. You pay respect to your elders and you show them how much respect for what they did coming before you. Now, all that hard work that my mom made me do did allow me to pursue education, and eventually I was able to go to this wonderful institution, which is Cal. And I was grateful that the Confucianist beliefs have also led me to this wonderful place, because the idea of government service and having harmonious relationships and having a peaceful and stable society is what has led me to become a teacher and to enjoy it so much. All right. Now, my mom always insisted that she was Taoist. Why did she want to be Taoist? And by the way, I always insist that I am Taoist, even though I do have Confucian beliefs as well as part of my culture. So Taoism is all about nature and being what's called one with the Tao. It was started by a man named Lao Tzu. People don't really know if Lao Tzu was actually a human being or not, or whether he's actually just an accumulation of knowledge and an invented person. But many things are attributed to Lao Tzu. So my mom was always saying, "Oh no, I'm Taoist. I'm not Confucianist. because she thought she didn't make me do everything, but I thought she made me do everything. One of the things about Confucian about Taoism is being in nature. And here you see mom taking me to nature, which is really nice. And so she did like nature. She liked to live close to nature, so she would always buy houses that were in the hills and far away from everything. So this is a view from where her second house was, where she lived for much of her life. So she did have that, but she wasn't really one for like going walking in nature or even, making sure that she got into nature all the time. So I was always like a little bit doubtful of her Taoist credentials because of that. Now, Lao Tzu said that what you want to do is you want to be one with the universal force known as the Tao. And you want to discover the Tao and discover how nature acts by sitting by a river or watching a cloud and just sort of being very simple. He said that the highest good was to be like water because water follows a natural path and it doesn't mind going to the low parts. Now, a lot of his collected wisdom is collected in this book called the Tao Te Ching. Now, the supreme good is like water, which nourishes all things without competing. It is content with the low places. Thus, it is like the Tao, Lao Tzu, or Lao Tzu. So he really believed that humility and being humble and just fitting in with nature was what was key. Now, my mom wanted to be humble, but she struggled with it. She always wanted to save the world. She always wanted to come up with a plan that was going to help everybody. And she wanted to not receive credit for it, which would be very Taoist. But sometimes I felt like in the back of her mind, she really did want credit for it, especially from her parents. And so I have gone through my life trying to prove my Taoist philosophy by saying, oh no, I don't need credit. And I struggle with that as well. But I like to think I'm better off than my mom when it comes to that. What's interesting about this is my mom isn't actually the one who gave me the Tao Te Ching. I've studied it a lot in my life, but the person who gave it to me is my dad. And you see him right there. And as you can tell, he's not Chinese. So that's interesting that this book was not given to me by my mom. It was given to me by my dad, who grew up in Minnesota amongst his Finnish family, which is European. Now, one thing that's really important about Taoism is the concept of yin-yang, which is the idea of balance, that everything has a little piece of the opposite in it. And my freshman year of college, I put a yin-yang in my left ear. You can see it there. I no longer have the earring, but I've still got the ear. And hopefully I've got some balance in my life because I think about yin-yang and I try to be part of everything without overwhelming things. One thing that I often think about is how that it's actually strong to be soft. We are conditioned in our society to think about how we have to overpower people, and that is what strength is. But Taoism says that actually giving way, sort of like how water gives way to the rock, you still can bring good and you still are powerful. Sort of like how the water will wear away the rock, even though water is softer than rock. Now, the third type is Buddhism. The belief system of Buddhism is very, very common in China. And it actually came from India. It was invented by a man named Siddhartha Gautama, who was later called the Buddha, and he lived in India. He taught that there are 4 noble truths. And basically the idea behind it is that you're supposed to overcome desire. And by overcoming desire, you can find inner peace. And meditation is another way to do this. So if you see here at this temple, and you'll see a little pagoda in the back there, they will burn incense. And this is an idea of praying and finding peace and meditation. The most famous Buddhist probably on earth today is the Dalai Lama, and he is a Tibetan Buddhist. He preaches that kindness is the best way to live your life, as the Buddha taught, and through meditation you can reach inner peace. I highly recommend reading about Buddhism at some point. Now, going back to my mom, she was not a practicing Buddhist, but she did have Buddhist concepts around her. For example, I grew up in a pretty rich neighborhood, and a lot of the families in my school drove Mercedes-Benzes that looked like this in the 1980s. That is not Buddhist, because Buddhism says that to end suffering, you must overcome your desire. And desire for material wealth is not something you should be pursuing. So my mom did have some Buddhist concepts because she did not have this sort of hang up on materialism. In fact, this is the car that we drove. It's less not Buddhism. Perhaps a Buddhist would have no car and would be walking most places. So this was less not Buddhism, but not all the way. So when we think about Buddhism, even though my mom was not a practicing Buddhist, you can see that there are aspects of it that were part of who she was, such as not having material goods or placing emphasis on that. Buddhism also preaches reincarnation, which is a return to earth where you come in a new body. And there's this cycle of suffering. And the way you break this cycle of suffering is by meditating and reaching what's called nirvana, or enlightenment, where you actually desire nothing. And because you desire nothing, you are never disappointed, and you're never unhappy, and you're never suffering. One of the signs that many Buddhists you will see is a Buddhist haircut, which is this idea that you don't care about your hair, you don't have that vanity, so you just kind of shave it. So in order to show that for this, I actually shaved my head a couple of days ago, so I could take that photo and show you a Buddhist haircut. So there are 3 types of belief systems in China, and whether you say you are a Confucianist, or say you are a Taoist, or say you are a Buddhist, all those things, if you are a follower of Chinese culture, are likely going to be part of your life. But you will emphasize some of them, and you might even declare that you are one and not the other, as I did in my multiple conversations with my mother. You would have to know both of us to truly decide who was a Confucianist, a Taoist, or a Buddhist. But just to review, the most important point of this lesson is, if you are a follower of Chinese culture, you're likely going to have all 3. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed that. That was done in loving memory of my mom, Alice C. Tang. Her Chinese name was Tang Chongchao, and she was also known as Mom. She was born in 1942, and she died in 2010. I love her a lot. Thanks for listening. I'm going to reward your patience now by telling you the answers to the 3 belief systems. So if you look in the first box, the blanks that you want to fill in is the goal of Confucianism is to create a peaceful and stable society. So peaceful and stable. They valued conduct, respect for elders, education, and government service is that next blank. Scooting down to filial piety is child's absolute respect for parent. Respect for parent. And then finally, society is based on relationships, and you want to fulfill responsibilities. And the next box, Lao Tzu, is oneness with universal force called the Tao. And you can discover the Tao or you can discover, let's discover how nature acts, put nature acts in there, by sitting by a river. The highest good is to be like water, and balance, you would want to say that, what is that going to be? Change is part of everything. Change is part of everything. All right, in that last box about Buddhism, you want to say that Buddha lived in India. It's the 4 Noble Truths. You want to overcome desire, and to reincarnation is death, where you return to the earth in a new body. Okay, number 1, you want to create a peaceful and stable society. Number 2, it is filial piety. Number 3, you want to live in harmony with nature. Number 4, you can sit by a river, look at a cloud, feel a breeze. Number 5, the Taoist symbol is yin yang. Number 6, you must overcome desire. Number 7, the idea of returning to earth is reincarnation. And number 8, Buddhism originally came from India. Your patience has been rewarded. Hope you enjoyed learning about those 3 belief systems.